So let me just start the meeting. Thank you, Rochelle, for starting the tape. This time I'll start out opening up the meeting. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is July 25th, 2024. Welcome to the Plumbing Piping Work Examining Board meeting. At this time, I would ask the board to review the minutes of our last meeting. And I ask for a acceptance of the minutes, a motion. And
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion, Chuck.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Melissa, she gave me a wave. I didn't hear. Is that a second, I'm assuming? Melissa? Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Might keep muting by accident.
Okay. So we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the minutes of the April 25th, 2024? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Deny. Abstain. So moved. Thank you. Okay. We have a quorum. So we have Carlton. We have Joe Policia. Melissa. Jay. Moore.
Yes.
Do we have anybody else that I don't see here on the screen? We got myself, obviously. So we have 325. So I think we have enough to. Is there anybody we're waiting on? Aaron at all? Is Aaron coming in? I had talked to him a couple days ago. If there's anything that we have on the agenda for well drilling, I wanted to address with him too. Okay, so we'll start. Do we have any comments or concerns of anybody at this time present in front of us today? Do we have anybody, Rochelle, that is to come in and talk to our board today at all?
I haven't reached out to me specifically, so I think looks like there's a couple people on that might be public, but I don't have any notes about it. So
okay, is there anybody in the general public that would like to say anything at this time? You'd have to unmute yourself and let us know who you are. Okay, having none, I guess we'll move on. We'll go right over to Pam. Are you is Janita coming, or are you going to do the review of the? Yeah,
I'm at the board reports to the board. So you would have received a copy from Rochelle. I don't know if you have any questions on the report for closed cases.
I saw it the other day, so I got it. But I did review it, and I don't have any questions myself at this time.
Okay, so with that, I'll introduce two new inspectors, Glenn and Mike, if you can join us on camera.
Morning.
Good morning. Morning.
Good morning.
So I can let you each talk a little bit about yourselves. This is we can start with Glenn, since you're unmuted.
I'm an occupational trades inspector here, going on 8 months. I've been a licensed plumber for over 35 years. I had my own business, GMAC Plumbing and Heating, for over 11 years. And I'm currently a 30-year member, still active, for Local 777 Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union.
I thought I recognized you, Glenn. I recognized as soon as the name popped up, I said I know the name, and then I saw your face. It's been a long time. How you been?
Good. How you been doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad. I think the last time I saw you was Sheehan High School, maybe in Wallingford.
I've been away for probably 15 years now, 12, 15 years.
Yeah, that had to be some time ago. Well, it's good to have you on board.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in, Glenn. Appreciate it. Michael, how are you doing? I know that face.
Yes, good morning. So my name is Michael Noli. I've been with Consumer Protection for 4 months. I'm one of their newest inspectors. I come from the plumbing field, of course. I've been a plumber since 1980, long time. P1 for quite a few years. Owned my own company here and in Arizona. NoCo Plumbing, which my brother still owns and operates today out of Weathersfield. I also have a BO license. Just retained the BO license actually last week. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Michael, congratulations on the BO. That's a huge, on top of your plumbing license, which we all know how hard that is to get and keep in Connecticut. But to add a full building official credential with the Department of Consumer Protection, how lucky is the department to have that? It's nice to have somebody that can see the other side and understand what, as a trades inspector, but at the same time, you really know what you're looking at. You've been trained, you know how to use those books. All, what, 10 or 12 of them, I think we all had to take that test on.
Right. It's well, it's 9, and yeah, it was a 6-hour test, but yeah, I got through it, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Charles.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Michael, Glenn, you're welcome to stay on as long as you want. Unless Pam's got some work for you to do, you're welcome to stay on with us this morning.
You guys can observe, just don't need to be on camera. So thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys, and good luck in the new role.
Okay, so what do we have next here? We want to bring up old business. Continued review of 23 Rogers Lake Trail Road in Old Lyme. Have we heard, Rochelle, back from anybody in regards to that placement over there at the lake?
All the new documents that they sent in the day of on our April meeting, so those weren't reviewed. So those were all provided in the link. So everything new has been uploaded.
Okay. Do we have Aaron here at all today? Aaron on with us? Okay. So I think as the well driller of record, we should wait to hear from him. I did talk to him the other day because I know there was a lot of the invites here today. Mine I had to find in my trash bin. So I had to go back and look, found that last week, earlier this week, of the meeting for today and the documents. So I guess we'll table that if that's okay with everyone.
Do you want to make a motion to table that?
Yes.
I'll make the motion to table.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, deny, abstain, so moved, passes. Okay. All right, so we have now applications for review. Basically, it was tabled from the last meeting on 3 individuals with W-2 status or requesting for status. Jay, under application review committees, have you looked into these individuals, these names and stuff to see if?
I believe they were denied through the application review committee. So that's why they're here. But Aaron is actually on the well driller now. They separated the plumbing and the well drilling. So Aaron sits for the reviews for the wells, for the W-2s. But the only thing I assume is they were denied at the application review committee, and that's why they're sent here. Typically, that's the format, correct?
Right, right.
So,
John, is there anything you could add to that?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good
Morning,
morning.
everybody. I don't have anything to add to that. No, they would have been reviewed. Oh, there's Mr. Nockbar.
Yeah, there's Alan. Yeah.
Perfect timing, Aaron. Perfect timing.
Yeah, Aaron, just to give you a quick, we just continued the review of the 23 Rogers Lake Trail information. I can reopen that up if we need to, if you have anything to add on that. Oh, you're still muted. Sorry. Yep, still muted. There you go.
Lousy service. Lousy service. I don't have anything in particular to add. I mean, I went through what was on there. What was the general consensus?
Okay. So at this point, we don't know if Wendy has approved or disapproved, or still waiting on our feedback from this board on that application she has in front of her.
You know, she moved things around and it looked like they were just going to need an exception from the water. Correct?
I haven't spoke with Wendy at all, so I'm not sure exactly how that went down. The exception would be the distance from Rogers Lake to where they wanted to drill the borehole.
Correct. It's just, you know, they're too close to the lake. I mean, there you go. There was you know, if they had a different system in there, if they had Mantis, there would be 134-foot row in there and there would be no issues. I'm still not sure whether they would actually get 25 feet from the lake, even if they did that. But if they put that, you know, if they put that different system in, they'd have plenty of room. But they can do what they did, what they suggested, which was move the tank and cut off half of one row. And I guess they're going to move the galleries over to the other row. It seemed kind of convoluted to me, but that's their business. As long as they have the 75 feet from the septic system, I have no objection.
So can
So
I ask a
what-
question?
Sure, Melissa, go ahead.
So I'm looking at what was submitted in our documents for today's meeting. I just want to be clear, is this an updated plan based on our last meeting with these highlights? And, you know, it sounds like Aaron's like, well, as long as they did this, I just want to be clear that this document was submitted to us for this meeting.
Well, I brought up that I thought they could make it fit. And so it looks like their representative or engineer, I'm not sure if he's an actual engineer, but whoever they have working on the septic system went back onto his B100 plan, which I think was dated March of 23. And he's got some dimensions on there and moved some things around that seemed to make Wendy happy. So it's not a new plan per se, Melissa, but it's
Yeah, it looks like
altered.
he just kind of updated it with this highlight, and it looks like that might have been July of 23, maybe. I just want to make sure that if we're going to vote on something, that what was submitted, that we all understand that it, because I don't know, Aaron, you know, I'm deferring to you on whether or not what is in our package for today's meeting is what is acceptable.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the other thing I noticed this time, and I don't think I paid attention to it the last time, was that their existing well isn't even on their property. It's out in that peninsula and it's beyond the boundary of their property line.
Right.
And I guess that may be okay on the lake. Maybe you have certain rights to lake, shared rights. But I'd find that a bit concerning if I was the property owner and was doing all this work, that my well wasn't on my property.
Yeah, it looks like it's about 240 feet out in the lake.
Yeah, it's not that far, but it's little peninsula. And if you look at the pins on his map, it's not on the property. You know, the other thing is there's a permit in there. It says it's a remodel addition, but somewhere else it says demolish the entire house and rebuild it. Usually when you do that, you have to meet all the current codes.
Yep.
So which is it? But
And I only see an as-built here from Shoreline Sanitation, who sold out years ago. That as-built goes back to 08. These places, got to keep in mind, were all cottages at one time down there. And they winterized probably back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. This 2/16/23 document from, is that Matt Stone? I don't know who is, but I believe the owner's name is underneath that, Jerry Karpaska. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that properly.
There was, yeah, the plan that he's got shows a couple of rows of galleries, and then he's got a reserve row way out by the street, which is twice as long, one long row. Which, if you put one 34-foot row of Miantis, it would be half as long up there. You'd clean that whole thing up nice and tidy and turn the tank. You'd have, I think you'd have plenty of room. I don't think anywhere in the back of the property you could get 25 feet to the lake. And that's, to me, that's a minor thing. That's something in our code that I think is archaic and needs to be changed, but we can't, we've been through this before. We can't change that. So I'm fairly comfortable giving them an exception on the 25 feet from the lake if they meet the 75 feet from any part of the existing septic system.
So here's my concern, again, as not a plumber or a well driller. We have a document that was presented at this meeting. I don't know if this document clearly reflects what we want to have happen to vote on it.
Can we make a request that they revise a new drawing dated with, the most current?
Well, that would
Instead of
help
just-
because I can't figure out the highlight.
No, I
You know what I
understand. I
mean?
know
And
where
the
you're at,
handwritten
Melissa.
note.
Yeah. Yep. They're just doing it on old drawings. Is it possible? I mean, can we require them to get a new engineered drawing to us with dimensions to show us the system?
I would prefer something like that so we all are clear on what we're voting on.
It doesn't have to be engineered. It can be by the installer.
Okay.
So are you fine, Aaron, with what they've presented?
Absolutely. They have room there. There's plenty of room there.
Oh, okay.
If I mean,
I
again,
feel the same
Melissa,
way.
yeah.
They wanted the easy way out, and I just don't want to give anybody exceptions less than 75 feet from septic, because it's just going to be, the word's going to get out, and we'll be doing this
Well, that's
10 times a
Well,
month.
that was my point. It's going to be precedent setting, and this happens in hundreds, if not thousands, of cottages in Connecticut. So I just want to make sure that we're all covered
You know,
for how this is going to work.
we're doing it, we're relaxing that code on the 25 feet to the water, and that's really, to me, a minor thing. And these people are very lucky. They're getting out of trouble. They're getting a well on their own property, and they're getting what they want.
Okay.
So get it on. I agree. Jay says get it on one plan, so a person can read it and exactly what you're going to do and what Wendy's going to approve, and then we can approve it. Where's Wendy? She should, or somebody from their group should.
Can we make that? Can we
Pop
make
in.
that motion that they give us an updated drawing with the
And
proper
appear.
dimensions in the new
And-
system, and we can approve it at that point?
And appear, or do you want and appear in front of us? We can call a special meeting if it's holding up the
No,
house.
they could just be emailed out to us, and we could just do an email approval. Doesn't have to be special call, just to show that they've made the effort. And you don't know, you don't even know if the installer drew this realistically.
Yeah, that's true. We don't, but it's this
No.
this guy, this name that's on there is throughout the documentation. So
Okay. All right. Well, Aaron, I mean, maybe I'm digging a little too deep. I mean, if you think it's okay and admissible, then, I'm going to go with you on your
Well-
professional opinion.
I can read it. I don't have any trouble reading it, but from Melissa's standpoint, it's kind of complicated to sort through and figure out what's old, what's new, what's proposed, what's reserved, what's B100. So I think it's a fair deal for us to request something on one document that's clear that we're approving. So
Let's put that in a motion.
You gotta
Yes.
love the public members, if you don't understand something, you just gotta ask the question.
No, I respect that, Melissa. I truly do. Yeah,
We
from an
have to-
outside
we have
perspective, I
We
mean,
had
it
to
looks
dumb
like,
it down
looks like,
here for the layperson.
you know,
Let's put it-
if you ever saw any of my drawings in handwriting, you'd make me redo everything. So I understand perfectly.
Well, we're setting a precedent, Aaron. You're gonna have to
So-
maybe
so-
have a little bit more formal plan.
would a motion be acceptable, Chuck, to say, I'd like to make a motion that the installer gives us an updated, clean drawing of the proposed changes made to meet code. Once that's done and submitted, you can email it out to the board. We will approve by email.
Seconded.
Is that a good
wanna
way? Is that a
discuss-
good way to
you
word it?
You want to discuss that 25-foot exception, relaxing the code if that's done? You want to just put that in your motion at all, or leave that out?
I mean, well, my thing with the lake, I mean, whether it's 50 feet, 25 feet, they're still getting the same water, aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, it's still the lake water that they're getting.
Well,
They'll case it
shallow-
off.
It's
Yeah.
it's a shallow well versus a drilled well, and the water quality, and I know this area very, very well for many years, and that it's a difference in the quality of the water. So it can be treated. They're building a house, they can put the systems in. So okay, 2 minutes. All right, so we have a motion for updated drawings to make changes to meet the board's recommendations. Do we have a second on that? I think Aaron gave the second.
I did second.
Any further discussion on it by anyone? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Deny? Abstain? Okay. So, Rachel, do you need, with this information that we've just provided you on the recording, will you be able to put that in an email format and send it to Wendy over at Ledge Light Health District? And
Yeah.
I would see the owner as well. It's Jerry Karp, GERRYKARP123@gmail.com. Just so the homeowner is aware, and that Wendy Brown Arnold, the sanitarian in that town of Owine, is aware.
I will reach out.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so we can move on. We have, I'm not sure why it's back in front of the board, but Aaron might shed light because as far as applications are concerned for well drilling, Aaron takes over the well drilling spot when Jay. So we have three. It's paperwork. We have three names, applications for review that were tabled from the last month. Were they? I think they were just basically all three of those applications were reviewed and tabled by the board to complete an apprenticeship in two of the cases, and one schooling is required. Not sure why they're on the agenda again. So, did we have them come back for a specific reason?
I thought that we were going to do some research into the point at which the well drilling application period changed from a change to an apprenticeship on the W's.
Oh, from a trainee to
From a trainee to a apprenticeship, and I wasn't able to come up with that. I don't know why. John, I don't know if you know that or we were able to ask.
Morning, Aaron. I don't know the answer to that one, when it was changed over, or if it was.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. I mean, you wrote a letter and then you could go sit for it when I did it. I thought Grella was going to give us some employment, some paperwork on these applicants, similar to what others have done when they've come before us. They show, payroll and all their years and hours and a quick spreadsheet. Just a letter from the secretary saying I've been working here for 30 years and I'm a dinosaur doesn't really do it for me. If they can prove that they had these guys working, and I think Gabby does. I have knowledge of her being there quite a while. I think she was there long enough prior to the apprenticeship requirements. But I've got to get the facts on the dates right. And I suppose maybe Rich knows. Could reach out to Rich and ask him when that changed.
Yeah, I can discuss that with you offline. That's not a, we could go over that.
Okay. That's all I have for that
Okay.
right
Okay.
now.
Yeah,
I
there
mean,
was an office staff person that was communicating. I'm not sure if it was with Karen and Pryor or with Rochelle. Rochelle, do you remember somebody in Grella's office getting in contact with you to get through to the board with all this information?
I have not received anything, no. So it might have been gone to Karen, but I did ask Karen if she had any updates with these, and she also did not have any updates. So
Okay.
they remained on here because it was to further review their apprenticeship
Okay.
and employment record. So
Thank you. We'll let Aaron and John discuss this offline. Very good. Okay. So moving on to new business. Jay, do you want to take it from here with the information that in regards to the septic piping systems leaving a foundation into a tank and some information that you had learned from Robert Fahey, the president of Plumbing Works LLC down in Norwalk?
Yeah, I can. So a gentleman emailed me by the name of Robert Fahey, and he sent me some information. He did a job in Darien, Connecticut, and he installed a building sewer from a garage dwelling to a septic tank. And evidently the health department told him that his P1 doesn't cover. The Darien Health Department problem is they will not accept his P1 license to install the line to the septic tank, and he needs to have a 1/4 inch of pitch per foot, but he has an 1/8 of an inch. And he's asked me if this is part of the plumbing board to step in and let them know that the P1 is acceptable to do this work. And where in a code does it state that a 1/4 inch per foot needs to be done? So I'm kind of at a crossroads where to go with that. So I brought it here. Maybe John has some input for me, or Chuck or Aaron. I don't know.
Well,
Well-
let me begin a little bit with this. This is Cower's book, okay? This is the septic cleaner exam preparation course. This is a class that's held at Wesleyan typically every year. You have to go through this book and all the regulations for B100, the up-to-date regulations. I looked through that. I could not, and I didn't spend all day, and I took the class a few years ago with my son to get our septic license once we had 4 systems installed that have to be signed off by a local sanitarian in order to be allowed to take this exam. So with that said, in the past, I've always known personally that I have to run a 1/4 of an inch pitch from inside the foundation to a tank. That's been, but where is that statutorily? I don't know. The sanitarians require that. when I have an inspection on a pipe to a tank, especially if we have a piece of tile that's broken or we have a sheared pipe, cast iron roots, whatever, we replace it. So typically they've always said, Chuck, sorry, you can't do it. You can't take out that permit in our town hall. So I would typically call Bob Scully, who's the head of COWR here for the State Department of Health. And he would say, yeah, Chucky, I'll make a call to the local sanitarian. But again, if that's not regulatory and statutorily, that's why I've got CJ sitting in here today. CJ, would you like to introduce yourself to the board, having taken over for Leslie in case we need to deal with something legislatively on this piece instead of, hearsay between DCP and Department of Health type of stuff. So
I probably should have submitted this email for, so somebody could screen share this. I apologize. I can get this I can email this to someone right now if they want to. You want
I
it,
just
Chuck?
got it. I just got it, Jay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John, to throw
That's
that
all
at you. I completely fell off my radar until I saw Chuck's face, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no worries. Glad Chuck reminded you of something.
At least the screen's not cracked yet.
So
CJ, would you, thanks for coming, by the way. I had asked Pam to reach out to you in a meeting the other day to see if you could attend today's meeting. Appreciate that. If you could introduce yourself to our board, that'd be great.
Sure. Yeah. So, hi, everybody. I'm CJ Strand. I started with the department in February as the new legislative director, taking over, trying to fill the big shoes of Leslie O'Brien. I have been around the Capitol for 15 plus years. I've previously been at the Department of Transportation and also did some advocacy for a smaller nonprofit doing some policy work. So I've kind of been around a lot of fields, still taking in all that DCP does, but I've been enjoying it. There's a great team, and we are getting ready. Around the corner, we'll be working on our own departmental legislative package to prepare and submit to the governor's office for approval. And I do look forward to working with you all and sharing anything that might pertain to the board or impact the board prior to that. But yeah, if you have anything you'd like me to review or take a look at, I am always available and happy to make myself available to you. Pop in here or just shoot me an email and happy to review things like that. So, but thank you for having me. And honestly, it's been kind of interesting just kind of with osmosis of hearing your discussions and learning more about this area that I will admit I'm not very familiar with. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, CJ, for coming. We've had so many things over the years come across our table, between fire, residential sprinkler systems, we had geothermal, we upgraded the well drilling regulations. So the department with Leslie and Julianne has been great, with the department staff as well, attorneys. But every year we're coming up with something new. This piece about the 1/4-inch pitch wasn't really brought up, but in the past it has been a problem for our contractors out there in Connecticut that hold an unlimited plumbing license. This is not a limited situation. An unlimited plumbing contractor should be able to do all plumbing work, piping. I hope I have an agreement with all my members of our board here, because that's important to say right off the bat. We follow codes and standards in the state here. We have plumbing codes that allow say a piece of 4-inch pipe that's being discussed in this request from this individual to be able to go to an 1/8-inch pitch, which in this case, that's what they did. And when the sanitarian, I believe in the jurisdiction that it's in, saw that and said, hey, maybe the quality of your pipe, your Schedule 40, what is it, 1785, I think is the number, I'm not sure. But if that is the approved pipe type, and Schedule 40 and 4-inch, but the 1/8-inch pipe is not gonna fly. But yet in a chart in our books that Connecticut has approved, it is allowed. So I'm not sure where it is legislatively, and I don't know who. In the past, it was Richard Hurlbert before John, and it was Bob Scully. So CJ, you might want to reach out at some point and find out where a statute actually lies there, We've always brought in the pipe in. I've always done a quarter because I have to get through the inspection. I know because I know. But other plumbers might not know this, and this
Hey.
is now becoming a concern. So go ahead, Jay.
Oh, I'm gonna request to have John put this up on the screen to share so everybody can read through
Thank you.
this. Yep.
Chuck, am I correct if that was 6-inch pipe, an eighth is okay?
I've got the code book open too here, so I'm gonna have to look that up in the chart. Just to verify.
I'm looking for it in B103. I'm trying, I can't find it.
Well, that's what I was trying to find before myself, and I couldn't find it. So now I cracked open our good old handy plumbing code book, and under Chapter 7 of sanitary drainage.
I mean, I took the septic installer's course and I'm trying to find it in my paperwork.
Aaron, I mean, or Chuck, am I mistaken that the P1 covers this work? I mean, the P1 is unlimited, right? I mean,
My knowledge was it always used to, you had, the P licenses had exclusive right to install the cast iron from the house to the septic tank.
yeah,
and-
he didn't install the septic tank. He just
You didn't
installed the
install the
main
tank,
drain.
but you ran that pipe out to the tank or through the foundation, and the septic installers could pick it up from there. And then over time, they started giving it, letting the septic installers come in through the wall. And I got to think it was when it became simpler, when it's Schedule 40 pipe and not cast iron and oakum and leaded joints, because those guys weren't capable of doing that. So this has got to be going back a ways.
Yeah, I mean, we're far away from that point in time, but I don't know where to direct this gentleman with that you know, to go back to the health department.
I mean,
I think we can make a motion that says, hey, you know, we follow the code. We're unlimited. The code says 1/8 inch until we find something statutorily that says differently. And that's something maybe CJ could work with the Department of Health person that has now took over that division for Bob. And maybe we can find that out, because I've looked through the Cowra book, Aaron, that we were just talking about, the same class you're talking about. I have the recent book. It was a year and a half ago I took the class. In my spare time at night, Monday nights, we took the class, in fact, from Wesley, but we did it online. It was kind of nice to be able to do that during COVID. But, you know, obviously, I don't have enough time to go through all the charts right now.
Right. It's going to take a while to find it, but I do remember that you were allowed in certain situations where you couldn't get that 1/4 inch if you ran 6-inch pipe out on your offset, you could have a 1/8 pitch. And I don't know anywhere where it says that a P1 can't install that pipe. I think Darien is incorrect.
Where can I direct this gentleman to speak? You know, where can I direct this gentleman to go? To CJ? Can I have? I mean, is he you the guy to reach out to?
I told him to call you, Jay. So I don't know.
Yeah, somebody told him to call me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I said it was, you know, when Rob reached out, I said, you know, it's an interesting quandary. I said,
He said he spoke with you and Chuck on it, or he attempt. I don't know if he spoke with you, Chuck.
I said
he did call me weeks ago, but I know he had spoke with you. I think he had spoke with Aaron. I told him to bring it up to the next board meeting, which you brought the documents up. Just so you know, I do this all the time. And I go to the sanitarian, I take out a permit, okay? Go in there and say, hey, here's my plumbing license, here's my insurance. We are down here at the shore dealing with Orangeburg pipe, tile, pipes sagging, pipes shearing, whether it's cast iron. In the last 70 years, guys, we've changed, 6 different materials that go from a house to a septic tank. And there's sagging, There's all sorts of stuff. The backfilling is important. The sand, the different methods, whether we're caulking with lead, oakum, bell hub, gasketed, underground clamps. I mean, look, guys, look at what we're doing. We've always done this work. This is our plumbing work. We should be able to do it, period. I'd like to see where we can't. This has always been, as far as I'm concerned, between Richard and Mr. Scully, was always a gentleman's thing, because when a sanitarian would tell me no, you know, I had to make the phone call in that office to get my clearance done immediately, and it was always cleared. So whether it's in writing or not, we should, at this point, if it needs to be clarified, it needs to be in a regulation, whether it's at the Department of Health or the Department of Consumer Protection. But at the end of the day, I feel we're already there. I don't think we need a statute if we're plumbers, unlimited P1s to do this type of work. So, I mean, that's my take on it.
I can't argue with that. It's got to be within your scope. You know, just a note off the record. Darien is the only town I ever was harassed about bringing a potable water line in within 3 feet of the septic, the offset going out to the tank. It's the only place, only spot and the place that we could get a pipe in. And I got a call from the sanitarian that says, you know, you can't have your water line within 3 feet of the sewer line coming out of the building. And I had to move it. So,
you know, in the code, we used to have, I think, water to septic was 10 feet. Then I would think back in early 2000s, if I recollect, there was a change from a 10-foot separating distance from a water main to any part of a septic system was then changed to 5 feet. Then there were some areas where the water line could be closer to a septic line if it was in an approved sleeve, right? And a lot of times some of the municipalities around, water purveyors in the area would force us, believe it or not, to buy a piece of ductile iron and run it in run the pipe 10 foot in each direction. You know how much that cost and how much that weighed, and the crane that you needed to go get it. And, you know, limited supply houses didn't have that around here. You would have to go to an industrial place to get that kind of piping systems, because that's what the water companies use, right? Ductile, underground, bell and spigot, gasketed. So I just think we really have this already. I think it's just something that maybe perhaps CJ could work with whoever's there now that took over for Bob. And you know, we can stick to our guns with what we feel is right. But again, I see way too many complicated jobs. We're running a snake out to a blocked inlet baffle or a collapsed pipe. There's 3 different repairs, if not more, made to that tank by Fernco couplings. Give me a break. They don't give any rigidity. They're allowed for underground usage only, not in a home, right? I don't want to pick on the word Fernco. That's a manufacturer's thing. But again, that was always designed, that coupling, for outside of a building, not inside of a building. Inside of a building, you would use a banded clamp. I think that's in the code and it's very clear. When I went through my building official classes a few years back, it was discussed many times that a Fernco is not allowed inside of a home. So with that said.
So I want to interject, Chuck. Someone, Felix, I'm not sure who Felix is had a question in the chat. Is this plumbing code still applies? Office of Public Health 566-3110, Public Act 74-341. I don't know who Felix is, but can we let him interject if he has some kind of input or knowledge, or find out who he is?
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Felix. I'm a manager of Benjamin Franklin Plumbing. I'm actually having the same issues with our inspector who does suspects. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Anyways, this is an old code that it was given to me by a previous plumber. I can send it to John Mezer for you guys can review it, but I'm getting all my guys licensed. But in that code states that the P1 is eligible to replace it up to the tank, not changing the tank, of course. And I have got into some disputes about this, and like I said, we're getting everybody licensed to replace those lines. It's just maddening sometimes trying to, half of our customer base is septic and wells, so we can't just follow all rules.
So you're having the same issue, Felix? Some inspectors won't let you connect to the septic tank?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll send it to John Mezer, the document I have. You guys can read it for among yourselves.
And
Okay.
going into the tank, there's sometimes, and a lot of times we're doing repairs. I do take out permits for repairs with say CRAD here in or whatever jurisdiction that I'm dealing with the sanitarians. I do take out the repair permits because I want that documented. That way, if the house was ever sold. But we have a lot of septics that were replaced down at the beaches here. New tanks, new plastic tanks. We're underwater on some of these jobs, dry wells, these new Mantis systems that Aaron was talking about earlier. There's so many different things that require J boxes and distribution boxes, which is all under the other license category. However, but going into the tank, we should be able to do the inlet T, and that is your sanitary T going down into the tank a certain distance that is offset the 2-inch or whatever the dimension is between the offset going out of the tank where there's a filter now that's required by law. So we should be able to do all that work into it, and then we wouldn't go any further. Now we grout the going into the tank with our pipe. We grout that. So I think that's where we should stand our ground on. And of course, we're all using Schedule 40 pipe PVC, hopefully rigid. I think it's D1785 if I'm not correct. But Felix, what was the code that you were given by a plumber? That would be very interesting for us to look into.
Like I said, I just sent it over to John Messer. He should have it in a couple seconds.
Okay.
It's what I see. This is November 27, 1974. I know it's dated. So I don't know if it still applies. I will do some more research. I'm just going around it and I hired a sanitarian contractor to teach all my guys to get the code up to specs, but this is an expense that my owner has a P1 to try to, don't need to do this if he has that license.
Yep, and his P2 should be able to run the pipe into the tank while he's on the job. So many times we're just dealing with so many repairs, and it's just, yeah, that's an old document. I wonder if that even still, if anything's been changed with that.
Yeah, I found it in B103, Chuck.
Okay. Is it still 74-341?
No. Nope. Well, I'm in the septic code.
Yeah.
1913 B103D, under building, sewers, and piping.
So there's a little bit more information down there. 95, there was a Richard Herbert discussion with a Frank Scheib. Frank Scheib was the gentleman, just so everybody knows, I believe.
Frank Schaub, yeah.
Yeah, Scheib. He was the guy before Bob Scully at Health. That's who that was, I believe. His name, I remember in the past year being brought up. There was a long-standing agreement between state health and consumer protection that notified John Valenti, registered sanitarian, and Dave something at Roto-Rooter P1 phone number to their inquiries about this in the past. And then there was another document, something was also brought up on 410 of 00, conversation with Richard Herbert. Again, P1, P3, P7, W9, all building sewer lateral. building to tank lateral. And then something about P7 is underneath that, looks like it's, or P3 is scratched out. That's where that ends, but I mean, if that's still good, then we're fine.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and just so the board knows, Chuck and I did have a quick discussion on this matter. Everything that's in that letter is still accurate as far as the license types and who could do such work as per the plumbing license. If the quick thing is whose jurisdiction is going into it, and that's where like the code being a book of minimum standards says 1/8 inch, but because the intended use is for the septic system and the septic says such, and that's the piece I need to discuss with CJ, and then we'll do our discussion with DPH to see how we could go forward with this.
Yeah, any building sewer piping 4-inch needs to be 1/4 inch per foot. 6 and 8 inch can be 1/8. That's in the technical standards of 2018. That's the last one I have.
2018 standards, okay.
I don't know how to share it. You know, to get Rob out of his quandary, he just needed to have a piece of 6-inch pipe and he would have been fine. Regardless of the semantics of who could put the pipe in. I think it's perfectly within his right to put that pipe in, but the way he did it doesn't meet septic code.
Yeah, so here's the right out of the book. This is on probably 1/1 of 18. This might be the same document that you have, Aaron. Under piping, building sewer shall be a minimum 4 inches in diameter and shall be approved piping per table 2.
Yeah.
And then a minimum grade of 1/4 inch per foot, approximately 2.1%, shall be provided for a 4-inch diameter building sewer, and 1/8 inch per foot for 6 and 8, just like Aaron just said. So if he had done a larger pipe, he would have been okay. The minimum grade requirement shall be provided for the entire building sewer. Building sewers shall have tight joints to the septic tank or grease interceptor tank. It'd be in a straight line with uniform grade wherever possible. Accessible manholes or surface cleanouts shall be provided at one or more cumulative changes of directions exceeding 45 degrees unless a 90% sweep approved in table 2 is utilized. Accessible manholes or surface cleanout shall be provided for each 75-foot run. Blah, blah, blah. Long building sewer lines shall be avoided to reduce the danger of groundwater infiltration and sewer blockages. Approved building sewer piping located within the sanitary radius of a water supply shall be provided the minimum separation distances, again in this table 2. Building sewer foundation penetration shall comply with the plumbing code, which is under the purview of the local building official. So this is the foundation is the purview of the building official. So not the sanitarian, which I think we all knew that, but that's never been an issue. So that's what Department of Health is going off. They're going off the 1/4 inch in this document. And then if he had run a 6 or an 8 inch pipe, he would have been allowed to run the 1/8 inch. Yeah, it's right there documented. Good catch, Aaron. Thank you. And Felix too. Thank you. Appreciate that. So at this point, this gentleman has this pipe already in the ground. How do we respond back to him? And let him know how this meeting went.
I kind of said to him, I wouldn't be surprised if you had to take your pipe out and put in 6-inch pipe. I don't know how you can, you can't. 1/4 inch doesn't meet the septic code. So again, I think he has the right to do the installation, but it needs to meet the sub sewage standard book.
if he shot a grade there, and he changed that out to 6 inch from 4 inch outside the building, would he, he'd have his eighth, would he? I wonder if that would work, if he could somehow get that 1/8 inch per foot, which, over a 10-foot piece of pipe is very minimal.
It's not much, but
Not much.
but we don't know what, we don't know how bad what they've done on top of it, but
And that's not our job. I mean, we're not
No.
code officials. Even a code official would say, go look in the book for yourself. You guys have the answers yourself. That's why we carry a code book in our trucks. So, building officials do the same thing with their own people, their own staffs out there. They tell their people, go look it up. You were trained and licensed and credentialed to do this kind of work. You know where to find the answers. So that's what's going to be said to. So that's how I was always brought up. Look, find your own answer because it's there. So anyhow,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that would that be the purview of the building inspector, or is it only the sanitarian there making this decision? Is that not under the regular plumbing permit, the mechanical permit of the house? Since Rob is doing it as a P1?
I mean, Chuck, you would know better, but I would think the pipe leaving the house would fall under the plumbing inspector, wouldn't it? Unless it's 5 foot from the foundation, 5 foot out of the building.
yeah.
Did say it was an accessory. It was an accessory septic line, so it's coming off. I thought he said a garage.
The building department right there, right out, he said the outside of the foundation. So the differential here is from the outside of the foundation, the 10-inch wall thickness or 12-inch, whatever you're dealing with there, or 8-inch in the old days. I don't want to see a reduction there from a quarter pitch to an 1/8 inch through the wall. I don't want to see a coupling in that foundation. That's going to be an instant shear later on, whether it's PVC cast iron, ductile, whatever you want to run through there, that's going to be a problem. So I think we should just make the call that it's, you got to run 1/4 inch into the wall. That should be maybe our call. That way the pipe is, that developed length of pipe from point A to point B, say 6 inches inside the foundation to the inside of the tank should be that way we have a joint. We can make a clamp, a joint, a glued, caulkable, maybe even 12 inches. Maybe we could call it 12 inches because sometimes we need to make a combination at our clean out at that wall. We might need to make a combination, and we're going to need a little bit more room than 6 inches, especially when you're dealing with say a 6 or an 8-inch hub, right? Instead of, we're all thinking 4-inch in our heads, but we might want to take that to another, at least minimum of 12 inches.
That makes sense.
12 inches inside the foundation. 1/4 inch to the tank. Because we're having everything from the whole house dump right down into that. And it's nice to have a good flow, nice push in the solids in the paper, flowing and down.
The change in diameter is not a good idea there. I agree.
Well, that's going to be his prerogative, right? Whatever he wants to do. I think what we need to do is somehow, are we supposed to respond to this as a board? I mean, I brought it. He sent me this email. I brought it to as a member of the board. I brought it for a decision. How do we respond back to this?
I think we need to turn it back on the local officials. I don't think there's anything for us to do here.
Okay.
The code is pretty clear. Chuck says, read the book.
Yep. And hey, not for nothing, guys. Remember, these toilets were 3.5 to 5 gallons when they were flushing in the old days. And now we take the reduction down to 1.8. We take it down to 1.6. Now we're at 1.28. You try to, that 1/8 inch pitch, guys, is going to be a problem down the road, especially with something especially laying on 1/8 of an inch if we ever allowed it. So we really got to stay with the 1/4 inch. That's my opinion.
You need a progressive screw to get it out to the tank.
Right.
So,
Okay.
We need to make a motion, or we just move along with a judgment?
I think we move ahead with the judgment. It's in the code. Just let him know that he has to go back to his jurisdiction and.
Do you think we should make it, should we make it a motion and forward him the minutes? This is the response. That way,
Okay. Okay.
there's no hearsay. This is what he said, she said. It's a motion by the board. It's voted on, it's seconded, it's approved.
Okay.
And there's his answer from us. That way, he's obviously reached out to everyone, and for some reason he's felt he's going to email me all the information. And that way it's been brought to the board. We've made a motion, we've made a decision, and Rochelle maybe could forward him the minutes and say, here's the response from the plumbing board.
Yep.
Is that an acceptable plan?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that makes sense.
So somebody want to make that motion, and we'll get that seconded and move this forward, and then Rochelle can send that document out.
I think we should have a outside party, somebody hasn't spoke to, make that motion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
And
I know,
someone other than the three of us should second it. So maybe
Okay.
Carl can make the motion, Melissa can second it, and all of us vote in favor.
Yeah, it works. So make a motion that the information for the code on the septic, I don't know how you want to word that.
Applies.
Applies as within the code.
Within
I
12
mean,
inches.
we're basically saying that the P1 has the authorization and always has to run to the septic tank.
The problem is he doesn't meet the code with pitch.
Correct.
maybe we want to word it, maybe something like that the applicant or the complainant return to the local jurisdiction and refer to the code.
So,
Refer to the sanitary code. Maybe can you add that, Carl?
yeah, so the applicant needs to go back to the jurisdiction and the sanitary code to look at it, that it is in the code.
And what about the 12 inches? I'd like to see that 12 inches be adopted into the building too, with that 1/4-inch pitch. Is that something we should
No.
bring up today?
I don't know if we can do that. He needs to follow the code. What's it say on your termination inside the wall?
I think we should just stick to what's at hand, his question, his issue. His issue is the P1, they're stating the P1 doesn't cover the work and his pitch is not enough. I think we
Right.
should not go any further
So,
than that and not open a can of worms that don't belong to us at the moment.
Yeah, we're opening up a whole national code thing between.
Exactly.
Yeah,
codes
let's
in
not.
different
But
Let's just stick to the matter at hand. The matter at hand is the P1 covers the work, but the 1/4-inch pitch, his 1/8-inch pitch is not sufficient with a 4-inch line according to the code, right?
to the sanitary
Right.
code. Yeah.
According to the sanitary code. So
We
maybe you
can
can
put a
present it
footnote
that
in.
way.
Chuck is right.
Yeah, footnotes can cause a major aggravation for us.
Yep.
We don't need that.
Invisible footnote.
Yeah, invisible footnote. So maybe Carl could present it as, according to us, a P1 is eligible to perform the work, but according to the code, 1/8 of an inch per foot is not acceptable.
Okay,
Is that good, Chuck?
so,
Yes, it is. Minimal.
Go ahead, Carl.
so the application that's before us is needs to go to the back to the permit side of it, right? So did he pull the permit through the sanitarian or through the building permit? Do we know that?
I
He
do.
has it here. Septic permit application, 32724 payment, plumbing, he's got a plumbing permit, there's a septic permit.
Because my question is this, are we, the way I look at it is that any work that I'm doing should be on my plumbing permit and be in the building side of things. Because the sanitarium basically should be from the septic tank out.
That's correct. That's my opinion. The sanitarian owns a septic tank out to the leaching fields. She doesn't own from the house.
Correct.
They do.
I mean,
make
that's
it
the way I've always done it. I mean, I've always thought that they had no say. So if I'm gonna go and make a change, I'm not gonna pull a sanitarian permit. I'm gonna pull a plumbing permit.
I've always had to. They've always come out. They've checked the pipe. That's why you put your letters up in that trench. You embed your pipe with sand, and every few feet you keep your D1785 exposed, so they can read that. And then they shoot a transit. You have to shoot a transit for them in the field. Some of them do, unless you're. Sometimes they have the good old boy program. Okay, we trust you. We know your installations, but they still supposed to come out and inspect it, and it's got to be documented on my repair permits too. And I document everything because you know why? Because 6 months from now, somebody goes in and puts landscaping and they come in there with a track thing and they start pushing soil away and the pipe is 12 inches under the soil. I had it inspected, sand, compaction properly, documented, inspected. Now it's hearsay if it wasn't inspected. So it's so important to get that part of that job permitted, especially when we start putting landscaping in and all sorts of stuff. I know I'm taking it, but it's so important to get that permit. $25, $50, whatever it is, and another inspection process, well worth it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Chip, Melissa, those are ayes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Chip, good.
I'm
Joe,
sorry.
And
please, Jeff.
in that motion, I'm sorry, like I make an amendment to that motion that Rochelle forward our meeting minutes and our response to this individual.
Great. So amended.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anything else for new business?
I do have one thing under new business. Been getting phone calls about continuing education and whether we can continue with some classes, because I guess they're getting phone calls of plumbers that were not able to fall into the class times that they had. So
Who's
are we
they?
going to extend,
Who's
can we
they?
extend that?
They must be licensed contractors that are required to take the CE. This Saturday, I believe, is the last class being held under the legislative requirement, 3 months prior to renewal of your plumbing license. So this Saturday, I think, is one of the last classes in Connecticut by 1 or 2 providers that would meet that guideline. So what Chip is asking, I believe, is can we extend it? But is there going to be now a fee, a future audit? What is going to happen? I mean, this is not our first rodeo. This is our second year of legislation. The department made it very clear to each license holder on their renewals 2 years ago that this requirement is lost. So, I mean, obviously, I think should we run extra classes? I think that's a good idea. But at the same time, it doesn't clear you from being late.
I'm gonna say that we shouldn't do that due to the audits that we did and all the people that had the same excuse. They couldn't make it, they couldn't do it, they couldn't get there. I mean, everyone has a contractor's license. I mean, they know it's part of what they have to do. And unfortunately, I think, you got to make the time to make the class. And for us to just, if we give an extension this time, we're going to have to give an extension next time and then the next time. So why do we even have a deadline date? We might as well just make it an open, all year. Whenever you can make it, you do it. I don't think it's a good thing for us.
No, you're right, Jay.
I don't think it's a
John,
good thing for us to keep making exceptions.
John, where does the electrical board, who follows the same suit as us, where do they come into this? What's their thoughts? Has this been addressed with the electrical board, allowing further classes to go on after the date has been set?
So they do have some providers that offer previous. They're on a yearly basis for all their credentials. So that's the difference between the two boards. So they do have the option to have some of their providers provide the previous year's CEs for individuals that don't renew on time for whatever the reason. So there's a little bit of a difference there. I guess, Chip, I think those individuals that didn't apply maybe should apply for a hardship. Would that work?
I would say no. Because
Well, a
a
hardship to, I'm sorry to cut you off, a hardship just explaining the reason why they couldn't get to it in time. Because some of the providers I do know had to cancel classes, had higher attendances, or they had to push individuals that signed up late. So a hardship that could be documented, that then the board could say, complete it, before this date.
I think that would be an acceptable way to go about it than just say, we're going to extend enrollment for another month. Maybe those individuals that didn't do it can send in a hardship and say, hey, we didn't make it for this reason. That's the same thing, just like we did all those audits, right? I mean, they had to give us a reason why they didn't do it. We just didn't give them carte blanche to go and take care of it. Yeah, I think we're holding a double standard.
Right, but the only issue is when, and I do the hardships, I've been doing the hardships as based what's in the document. The document really is saying that for a hardship case, it's got to be either medical, military leave. It's pretty specific of what we're considering, at least in that document, a hardship. So once we get outside of what that paragraph says that's in that form, I don't think we should be playing with the hardship, on a hardship basis, unless it was some medical or something that, and I don't off the top of my head remember everything that's in there, but it's pretty specific of what is acceptable as a hardship. And we don't want to change.
I agree with that, Carl. I agree. There's no question.
We don't want to change that definition.
Right.
Yeah, I could run this by legal. This was a unique year just because the curriculum was delayed in coming out, which allowed for or disallowed for some of the providers to get the classes offered on time. So I don't know if we could look at an exception for that particular matter because the curriculum was delayed, delaying some of the
John,
providers.
that's a good point. I forgot about that. That is a good point. It was very late this year. I still think they could have signed up earlier, but that is a good point.
Mr. Chairman, as
no, go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Palakia, as a proctor for the continuing ed classes, I can attest that through the last 6 months, there are many, many classes that were not to capacity. So there was availability out there that people could have taken advantage of.
That's quite interesting.
Good to know.
And we also know this is part of our livelihood, right? I mean, you have to do it. You have to do it. So when January comes, you should just book it ahead of time and make the time.
Right. And I agree with you, Jay, as far as that. I don't think it should be okay, you can take a class. I think that if you're late and you didn't take the class and for whatever reason, I mean, this is our livelihood. I mean, you got to show up and do what your livelihood tells you to do, right? So I'm kind of looking at the fact that, what if I do miss it? What are the penalties? Is it I don't know what the difference was between me coming in late versus me not telling you and being audited. So in other words, the audit, I didn't say anything, might have been a higher monetary value versus me coming in late and saying, you know what, I totally didn't get the class. How can I do it?
We don't know what the repercussions are for not taking the class is the problem, right? Or what to do.
Right. And I'm letting you know that I didn't take the class versus I'm going to wait to see if you find me.
Right.
Well, that's usually right. That's usually the check off, right? When you go to renew your license, have you met your criteria for continuing ed? Are you going to check that box or you're not on time? So when you do come for an audit, we usually had those records. Howard usually had very good in our meetings, with the audits. We really had some really good information there to go on. So everybody tried to pull the wool over our heads, but we kind of had some really great backup going on there. So I think that hopefully that check box is still there when it comes time, and we'll be able to keep that document for the future in the event they do not do it. Obviously, with the plumbers, the class that we are having this past 9 months, 8 months since it's been approved is now continuing on to the journeyman for next year. So it's the same class. So I don't want them not to take it. I think we should have it, but again, they're going to be late. I think it's up to legal. John was mentioning maybe we can get legal to look at this. What do you think, John?
Sorry, I didn't realize I muted myself. Yes, I'll have a review with Paul and legal and make a determination on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that should be discussed for sure. Because that's not up to us to be doing all the audits and stuff like that. It's going to be the department, and if they're not meeting the criteria, and they've had plenty of time to do it. So, and those classes will be still held. So. And also, they're going to have to make sure that when they're late, that they're going to have to identify the class that they took and that date on it. So I think all our providers do put the date on there of the class when they give a certificate. So we want to make sure that that individual who is late for that particular curriculum, 24-25, it's mentioned on that certificate as well, if they're late, I mean, not just because they're late, but it should be there anyhow,
What is the repercussion now for do we even have one? If you miss the cutoff date, is there any?
That's a good question since we went through this whole process.
I know we went through all these audits before, and we're back obviously at square one again because you have people that are obviously going to miss the cutoff date. Today's the 25th. What's the repercussion if the person doesn't do it and checks off the box again? I mean,
I think that's what John's got to do. He's got to check with legal. All right. Say about it.
All right.
Maybe perhaps at the next meeting, or perhaps John could send an email out to the board to let us know what that is. Because obviously we are now starting next week. We are the first of the month, and everything beyond that is has to be, somehow looked at and decision made.
Yeah, so and the reason I brought it up now is because some of the schools are getting phone calls from plumbers who technically know and realize that they have to be done by the end of the month. I guess they call it the last week of the month to get a class. So, in one way they know that they're late. They're willing to try to take a class. They just can't, these schools, just can't make classes out of thin air. So, I just think that it is a kind of two-sided thing. If I'm trying to do the right thing, but I'm late, I think, I don't know, it's not any different than, I guess my driver's license, really. If it expires, I can't use it. So
Chip,
technically,
a lot of the providers have done one heck of a job reminding
absolutely.
over and over.
Well, I'm not saying that.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that the providers have just asked me that they're getting a lot of phone calls and we're going to extend it. And I said that, I would bring it up to the board. So, and I'm not saying that we should be very lenient on it, because I think it is, as Jay says, I mean, I'm never going to let my license go. And I make sure that all my T's are crossed. And, I'm not going to lose my license over something silly like, I couldn't take 5 hours of the whole year or 6 months or whatever to, that I don't see that argument.
Let's see
and
what
like
Paul
you said,
picked up.
they've had more than enough classes. They did online. They did, a ton. And I think they need to be applauded for all the classes that they've done.
And that's interesting to hear from Joe Polici as an instructor, that there were quite a few openings that were not filled. And that's sad, because people want those seats today. And you know, back in the winter months, that was the perfect time to do it. Everybody gets busy during this time of year. So for them to try to find a class now towards the end, it's almost impossible to meet that deadline. But okay, let's
So
see what Paul
Can I just ask, thinking as a business person who have to do all my certifications, my DAS pre-qual, you know, City of Hartford stuff. So is John's direction that we're giving him to find out legally what happens? Because I agree with that. I agree with everybody needing to do what they need to do, because I have to do that myself. But I also agree with Jay, like what happens now? And Chip, to your point, if you don't have a driver's license, you just, you know, you have to go back to the DMV and you go through the whole process. It's not like the state doesn't give them a license. They just have to redo the whole process and you can't drive in the meantime. So John's going to find out legally what happens. But then I think we need a realistic approach to it as well, because people may, you know, otherwise we're going to have this onslaught of people that come back to us that couldn't get it, and then we do all these hearings and stuff. Is we have to figure out in the next meeting, once John reports back, is there going to be a fine? Are we still going to allow classes, make up classes, whatever? So it's a question and a statement, I guess.
So, thank you, Melissa. I will actually be with Chip, and I believe Joe's going to be there tomorrow. We could review this and then follow up with the rest of the board. You know, the process right now, the way that it happens, without doing an actual audit, individuals kind of self-admit whether or not they completed their CEs or not when they're renewing their licensure. So without, again, doing that audit, we don't know when they completed it. So yeah, we'll have to follow up to see, for those that do indicate the fact that they did not complete it and are renewing their license, what enforcement action the board would like to take with that.
Okay, can I just also say, John, we talked about this before, you and I, at one of the meetings in person, and this just
Yes.
goes to that follow-up comment and question. Follow-up is that PSI, we shouldn't have to take state resources to do an audit. PSI has the technology available because they do it in other states, for someone to upload their completed CEUs before they're allowed to renew. That technology exists in Georgia, I know for sure. So this is something apparently the state may or may not, and I don't know the answer, but the state may or may not have chosen that option when they renewed with PSI. But maybe we could add it on, because why would we take, I don't know what the cost was, it was probably a lot, but it's probably cheaper than having state staff do an audit and our time as volunteers listening to people. So I really am going to keep pushing for the state to utilize the technology that's out there already.
Yeah, and I would have to kick that to Jay Cohen. I don't know if Jay has a comment now that he wants to make on that, but yeah, we would have to go back and look at the contract that we have with PSI.
I would ask that happens, and also explore the possibility of if it's an add-on prior to renewing, because I think you just renewed recently with PSI.
Jay, you have any comment on that? I think he's on the meeting.
I don't think he's in the meeting anymore.
Okay, thank you, Rochelle.
Could somebody please follow up on that for the next meeting, because this would eliminate a lot of confusion. If they, in Georgia, or I think it's another state too, you can't renew your license with PSI or someone without uploading your credentials. And I might not be saying that right, because I don't take a test with PSI.
All right, I could follow up with Jay tomorrow on that, and like I said,
Thanks,
Chip
John.
and I believe Joe will be there as well, so we could get that answer for you.
I just believe technology exists somewhere that's not taking up state staff time. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Does anybody else have anything under new business this morning? Can I ask for a, so we can go? Chip, are you saying something? Chip, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
No, I'm all set, sorry.
Okay, great. Everybody else is all set. Joe, Policia, you're all set too as well? Go ahead,
I
end the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of ending today's meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Hi,
Okay, very good. Thanks, everybody.
see you guys.
So long.
Yep. Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Two.
Have a great day.
Take care, guys.